The fear in the little girl's eyes was visible even in the dim streetlight reflecting through the rain-soaked window. With trembling hands, she hugged K9 Axel's neck, burying her face in the dog's thick fur. The German shepherd stood still, his amber eyes locked on the door. His ears perked up, and a soft growl rose from his throat. "Nobody can find us here, right?" the girl whispered, her voice cracked and full of fear. "You'll protect me, promise?" Axel's only answer was to stand even more protectively. Officer Rachel Winters watched the movement of shadows outside the building, having turned off the sound on her radio. Nobody expected them to be here. Nobody. The abandoned warehouse by the river had been Rachel's desperate choice. After escaping the apartment with Sophia, they'd discovered her police cruiser's tires slashed. Someone was tracking them, someone connected to the kidnapper. Sergeant Davis had warned her earlier about the Rivera case having potential ties to the North Side trafficking ring they'd been investigating for months. Rachel checked her service weapon again, counting the remaining bullets. 6 rounds left. Her backup phone had died an hour ago, and now they were truly on their own until morning. Outside, the autumn rain continued its relentless assault, providing cover but also washing away any chance of Axel tracking their pursuer's scent. "My mom used to say angels watch over us when we're scared," Sophia whispered, her small fingers clutching Axel's fur. "Is that why your dog's name is like Angel?" Rachel smiled despite the tension. "That's a beautiful thought, Sophia. And yes, Axel is certainly our guardian tonight." A sudden crash from somewhere deeper in the warehouse made them freeze. Axel's muscles tensed beneath his fur, ready to defend. Rachel raised her weapon, positioning herself between the door and the child. 2 days earlier, in the brightly lit hallways of the Chicago police station, an ordinary fall day had begun. Officer Rachel Winters was adjusting the leash of her partner of 5 years, K9 Axel, getting ready for the day's routine patrol. Axel's black and brown fur shone in the morning sun. "Let's hope for a quiet day, buddy," said Rachel, patting Axel's head. The dog growled softly in response, as if saying, "Life is never quiet." As Rachel and Axel patrolled the Park District area of the city, everything really did seem normal. Fall leaves covered the sidewalks, with shades of brown and yellow giving the streets a picturesque look. They stopped at a local store to check security cameras, then greeted some teenagers in the neighborhood park. Captain Reeves had assigned them to this normally quiet beat following their high-profile drug bust last week. 3 officers had been wounded in that operation, including Rachel's close friend, Officer Miguel Santos, who remained in critical condition. The memory of Miguel's blood on her hands had kept Rachel awake for nights, and Axel seemed to sense her anxiety, staying closer than usual. "Officer Winters," called out a familiar voice. Rachel turned to see Danny Nguyen, a local high school teacher who ran the community outreach program. "How's Miguel doing?" he asked, concern etched in his features. "Still fighting," Rachel replied, the weight of worry evident in her voice. "The doctors are cautiously optimistic." Danny nodded solemnly. "The kids made cards for him. I was going to drop them by the hospital later." As they chatted, Axel's attention drifted to a dark sedan parked across the street, his posture subtly changing. Rachel noticed but didn't interrupt her conversation. The car pulled away moments later, but something about it nagged at her subconscious, something familiar about the driver's silhouette. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Chen," said Rachel as they passed the flower shop on the corner. The elderly Chinese woman smiled, then offered a special dog biscuit she kept for Axel. "Good afternoon, Officer Winters. Axel looks very alert today." Rachel looked at her dog. Indeed, Axel seemed more watchful than usual, his nostrils constantly sampling the air, his ears reacting to the smallest sounds. "Maybe he senses the coming storm," said Rachel, looking at the gray clouds in the sky. But she felt uneasy inside. During their 5 years together, she had learned that Axel's instincts were never wrong. If the dog sensed something, he was probably right. Mrs. Chen leaned closer, lowering her voice. "That man was here again this morning," she said, her wrinkled face tightening with concern. "The one who asks about police patrols." Rachel's professional alertness kicked in. "What man, Mrs. Chen? Did he identify himself?" The elderly woman shook her head. "Never gives a name. Wears expensive shoes but cheap clothes. Wrong combination," she added with the wisdom of someone who had spent decades observing people. "Today he asked about you and your dog specifically." Rachel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn breeze. 2 months ago, they'd received intelligence about a revenge plot against officers involved in breaking up a trafficking operation. The Riverside neighborhood hadn't appeared in those reports, but patterns were shifting. "Did he show any interest in particular buildings or areas?" Rachel asked, trying to keep her tone casual. Mrs. Chen nodded toward Riverside Apartments. "Asked if police check there often. I told him you visit Mrs. Henderson daily because of her heart condition." She paused, adding significantly, "I didn't mention that you only visit Tuesdays and Fridays." Rachel appreciated the elderly woman's street-smart instincts. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. If he returns, I call immediately," Mrs. Chen finished with determination. "I watch out for those who watch out for us." Axel nudged Rachel's hand impatiently, eager to continue their patrol, but his focus remained unnaturally fixed on the direction of Riverside Apartments. As they continued their patrol, they approached Riverside Apartments. The old red brick building reflected the typical architecture of this part of the city. Rachel enjoyed chatting with the building's elderly residents during her daily checks. "Come on, Axel, let's visit Mrs. Henderson. I heard she fell on her back last week." However, as they approached the building entrance, Axel suddenly stopped. His fur stood up, his body completely tensed as he went into alert mode. Rachel knew this behavior. Her dog sensed danger. "What's wrong, boy?" Rachel whispered, moving her hand to her service weapon. Axel growled softly, his eyes fixed on a window on the 3rd floor of the building. The curtain had moved slightly, then quickly closed. The tension in Axel's posture triggered Rachel's memory of their training sessions. This wasn't just general alertness, this was his specific response to human distress. Last summer, they'd found a hiker trapped under fallen debris using exactly this behavior pattern. A postal worker exited the building, nodding politely at Rachel. "Afternoon, officer. Nasty business with that missing girl, isn't it? Saw it on the morning news." "The Rivera case?" Rachel asked, recalling the bulletin from that morning's briefing. "That's the one. 8 years old, disappeared from outside Lincoln Elementary, mother's frantic." He shook his head sadly. "My route takes me right past that school. Never thought something like that would happen there." As the mailman continued on his route, Rachel mentally mapped the connections. Lincoln Elementary was less than 2 miles from here, and the school's principal lived in this very building. Mrs. Henderson had mentioned it just last week. Her granddaughter was in the same grade as the missing girl. These thoughts swirled in Rachel's mind as Axel's growl deepened, his gaze unwavering from that 3rd floor window. Something was very wrong here, and Axel knew it. 2 teenagers exited the building, their conversation halting abruptly upon seeing Rachel and Axel. The taller one nudged his friend nervously before they hurried away. Rachel made a mental note of their appearance. Something about their reaction seemed off. Rachel turned on her radio. "Dispatch, this is 14 Bravo, requesting backup for a possible situation at Riverside Apartments." 14 Bravo, state the nature of the situation, came the reply from the radio. Rachel paused for a moment. What could she say? "My K9 is staring at a window" wouldn't be enough, but she had trusted Axel's instincts for years. "Suspicious activity, K9 indicating, requesting precautionary backup." As they headed to the lobby to find the building manager, Mr. Martinez, Axel's tension continued to grow. The dog kept looking toward the 3rd floor, trying to pull Rachel in that direction. Mr. Martinez, who lives on the third floor, especially on the east side? Rachel asked. The older man checked his computer. Apartment 302 should be empty. The tenant moved out 2 weeks ago, and the new tenant hasn't arrived yet. Copy that, 14 Bravo. Be advised, all units currently responding to a 5-car pileup on Highway 90. Earliest backup ETA 20 minutes, dispatch responded. Rachel acknowledged the delay, weighing her options. Protocol dictated waiting for backup, but Axel's behavior was becoming increasingly urgent. She'd seen this intensity only a handful of times in their partnership. Mr. Martinez leaned closer, lowering his voice. Officer, there's something else. Yesterday, I thought I heard noises from 302, like someone was inside. I checked my records thinking maybe the new tenant had arrived early, but there was nothing scheduled. Did you investigate? Rachel asked. I knocked, but nobody answered. I was going to check again this morning, but got caught up with a plumbing emergency in the basement. He hesitated. The thing is, I've been seeing that dark sedan parked across the street at odd hours. Same one from last month when we had those break-ins. Rachel felt her pulse quicken. The sedan. The same one she'd noticed earlier with Danny Nguyen? Her mind raced through possibilities. If this was connected to the missing girl, every minute could be crucial. Has anyone else reported unusual activity? Strangers in the building? Unexpected deliveries? Rachel pressed. Mr. Martinez shook his head. Not specifically, but Mrs. Parker in 304 mentioned hearing crying yesterday. She thought it was the Thompson kids visiting their grandfather in 306, but... Axel whined impatiently, pulling toward the stairs with increasing determination. Rachel's uneasiness grew. What about the other apartments on that side of the building? The Parker family is in 304, mother, father, and twin sons. Old Mr. Thompson is in 306. The Hendersons are in 300, but they're on vacation right now. Axel growled impatiently, tugging at Rachel's pants. I need a key, said Rachel, trusting her instincts, and more importantly, Axel's instincts. I need to check apartment 302. Mr. Martinez looked unsure. Without a search warrant? This is an emergency check, said Rachel, increasing the authority in her voice. My K9 has detected something, and I can't ignore that. The building manager shifted uncomfortably. There's something else you should know. Last night around 2 a.m., I got a call from Mrs. Parker about a man she didn't recognize carrying what looked like a sleeping child up the stairs. I checked the security cameras this morning, but that section of footage was corrupted, just static. Rachel's concern deepened. Corrupted footage suggests deliberate tampering, professional work. I've been meaning to report it, but honestly, I wasn't sure what I'd seen. The cameras in this building have been unreliable since the lightning strike last month. As Mr. Martinez retrieved the master key, Rachel's phone vibrated, a text from Detective Garcia, who headed the Missing Persons Division. Any unusual activity in your patrol area? Rivera kidnapping suspect may have Park District connections. Rachel quickly responded, detailing her current situation and requesting any available information on the Rivera case. Axel's behavior, the corrupted security footage, the reports of crying, all pointed to something far more serious than a simple trespassing. Officer, Mr. Martinez said, handing her the key, if there's really someone in there who shouldn't be, please be careful. The walls in this building are thick. People can be screaming and nobody would hear from the hallway. Rachel nodded grimly, checking her weapon once more. Call this number if backup arrives before I return, she instructed, handing him her card. Tell them where I've gone and that I'm investigating a potential connection to the Rivera kidnapping. As they climbed to the third floor, the hallway was quiet. Rachel's steps were almost silent on the carpeted floor, but her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Axel moved ahead, his steps determined and alert. When they reached apartment 302, Rachel listened at the door. At first she heard nothing, then a very faint sobbing sound, a child's muffled crying. Police! Open the door! Rachel called out, knocking on the door. From inside came the sound of quick footsteps, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Rachel used the key Mr. Martinez had given her to open the door and gave Axel the find command. The German Shepherd rushed into the dark apartment, with Rachel running right behind him. The apartment was almost empty, with just a few old pieces of furniture. They saw that the kitchen window was broken. Someone had quickly escaped over the balcony. "Dispatch, suspect fleeing the building using the fire escape on the east side." Rachel reported into her radio, looking out the window. Through the broken window, Rachel caught a glimpse of a man in a dark jacket descending the fire escape with remarkable agility. Something about his movement triggered a memory. The same fluid efficiency she'd witnessed during the warehouse raid where Miguel had been shot. The realization hit her. This wasn't just any kidnapper. This could be connected to the North Side ring they'd been tracking for months. A small stuffed rabbit lay on the kitchen floor, along with a child's backpack bearing the Lincoln Elementary School logo. Next to it was a cell phone, likely burner, with the screen still lit. Rachel quickly photographed everything before touching the scene. The apartment had been hastily prepared for occupation. Minimal furniture, blackout curtains taped to windows, and locks installed on the bedroom door from the outside. A small table held food wrappers, water bottles, and, most disturbing, printed instructions detailing border crossing points into Canada. Rachel felt sick. This wasn't just a kidnapping. It was a trafficking operation. And from the preparations, they'd been planning this for weeks, possibly months. The missing girl was just one piece of a larger, more sinister puzzle. Axel's urgent bark from the bedroom refocused her attention. The immediate priority was finding the child, but Axel hadn't stopped in the kitchen. The dog was moving toward the bedroom, his nostrils constantly sampling the air. Rachel followed him, keeping her weapon ready. The bedroom door was closed. Axel sat in front of the door, as he was trained to do, indicating someone was inside. "Police! Is anyone in there?" Rachel called out, standing beside the door. There was no answer, but Axel moved restlessly. Rachel slowly turned the doorknob and opened the door. She stopped in front of the closet in the corner of the room. Axel went directly to the closet, scratching the door lightly with his paw. When Rachel opened the closet, she found a girl about 8 years old. The little girl was curled up in fear, hugging her knees to her chest. Her face was wet with tears, her eyes wide with fear. The bedroom was sparse, just a mattress on the floor and an old lamp casting eerie shadows across the walls. Rachel noticed marks on the door frame where restraints had been attached, and her heart sank at what the child must have endured. The closet was deep, with a small blanket and pillow arranged in one corner. The girl had been there for some time, not just hidden away in the moment of Rachel's arrival. Drawings made with crayons lined the inner walls of the closet. Pictures of a woman with a sad face, a house, and a dog that looked remarkably like Axel. "They said if I screamed, they'd hurt my mom," whispered the girl, her voice hoarse from crying. "The man with the scar said nobody would find me." Rachel noted these details mentally. The man with the scar could be Victor Renkoff, a key figure in the trafficking ring they'd been investigating. If he was involved, this case went far beyond a simple kidnapping. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Backup was finally arriving, but Rachel knew the suspect was long gone. What disturbed her most was how quickly he'd fled, almost as if he'd been expecting them. Someone had tipped him off about their patrol route and timing. Axel moved protectively closer to the girl, his body positioned between her and the door. Years of K-9 training had taught him to recognize and respond to the most vulnerable person in any situation. The dog's behavior confirmed what Rachel already suspected. This child had been through severe trauma and needed immediate protection. "Hello?" said Rachel, putting her gun back in its holster. "I'm Officer Winters. I'm here to help you. This is my partner, Axel." The girl looked at the dog, then at Rachel. He'll come back," she whispered. "Who, sweetie? Who will come back?" My uncle, said the girl, her voice shaking. He picked me up from school. He said something happened to my mom, but then he brought me here. Rachel slowly bent down toward the girl. What's your name, sweetie? Sophia, the girl answered. Sophia Rivera. A light went off in Rachel's mind. Sophia Rivera. The girl reported missing from school 2 days ago. Posters had been put up all over the city, but there were no witnesses, no clues. Sophia, you're very brave, said Rachel. Now I'm going to take you to a safe place. Outside, the sound of police radios grew louder. Rachel heard familiar voices. Officer Jenkins and Detective Ortiz had arrived. There were other children, Sophia whispered, clutching Rachel's sleeve. I heard them yesterday. They were crying too. Rachel's blood ran cold. Other children? Did you see them? Sophia shook her head. They took them away last night. The man with the scar was angry about something. He kept saying the schedule's been compromised. This confirmed Rachel's worst fears. They'd stumbled upon part of an active trafficking operation. If Sophia had heard other children, then there were more victims, possibly already transported to another location. Detective Garcia appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. We've got a situation, Winters. The suspect's description matches Viktor Renkov's associate, Dmitry Volkov. He's wanted in connection with 3 other abductions across the state. Rachel nodded, keeping her voice calm for Sophia's benefit. We need to get her to safety immediately. Volkov knows we found her, which means others in his network will know soon too. Garcia lowered his voice. There's more. Officer Santos regained consciousness this morning. Before they sedated him again, he mentioned a mole in the department, someone feeding information to Renkov's people. The implications were staggering. If there was an insider, then Sophia's rescue might have triggered contingency plans within the trafficking ring. Rachel made a quick decision. We need to move her off-grid, she whispered to Garcia. No standard protocols, no usual safe houses. Not until we know who we can trust. The girl hesitated, then looked at Axel. The dog calmly moved forward, extending his head toward Sophia's hand. The girl reached out with a trembling hand and patted Axel's head. The dog's warmth and calmness slightly reduced the fear on the girl's face. He will protect you, said Rachel, pointing to Axel. He's a special dog, and he wants you to be safe. Sophia slowly came out of the closet and sat next to Axel, wrapping her arms around his neck. When backup arrived at the apartment, Rachel quickly explained the situation. Sophia's uncle, actually her mother's ex-boyfriend, had been caught hiding in the building. He had kidnapped the child and was preparing to ask for ransom. How did you know? Asked Detective Garcia, taking notes. This apartment was listed as empty. There were no complaints, no reports of suspicious activity. Rachel looked at Axel, who was being hugged by Sophia. Axel knew. There was something he felt, a smell, a sound maybe, but he knew. In the ambulance, waiting to be reunited with Sophia's mother, the little girl was still hugging Axel's neck. Is he an angel? Asked Sophia, gently stroking Axel's ear. Rachel smiled. In a way, yes. He protects us, and sometimes he can see things we can't see. Sophia nodded, hugging Axel tightly. Thank you for finding me. Rachel met her dog's amber eyes. During her 5 years of service, Axel had shown her many times how fragile lives can be, and that sometimes the biggest heroes walk on 4 legs. As it started to rain, the ambulance lights lit up the street. Rachel lovingly patted Axel's head. Good job, partner, she whispered. Very good job. Axel wagged his tail slightly, as if to say, this is just my duty, and didn't take his eyes off Sophia for even a moment, because for K-9 officers, the duty never ended. Instincts always on alert, hearts always full of protective instinct. The rain turned to downpour as the ambulance doors closed. Before leaving for the hospital, Detective Garcia pulled Rachel aside. This case is bigger than we thought. The evidence from the apartment connects to 3 other missing children cases across the state. Rachel nodded grimly. We need to move fast. If Volkov and Renkov are working together, they'll have contingency plans. We've got a safe house ready for Sophia and her mother, Garcia confirmed. But we need to find those other children. As Rachel watched the ambulance depart, she felt Axel press against her leg, his silent way of offering support. Tomorrow would bring new challenges in this case, but tonight they had achieved something precious. One child was safe, one family would be reunited. We'll find them, Rachel promised, both to herself and to Axel. All of them. The German shepherd looked up at her with those knowing amber eyes, a silent promise reflected in them. Together they would continue their mission, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, being the voice for those who couldn't speak, and bringing light to the darkest corners of the city. This brings us to the end of this story. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, don't hesitate to like the video and share it with your friends too. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell for more fascinating stories. Have a nice day.